I was standing at my kitchen sink on a Wednesday morning, holding a sponge that had turned a color I could not name. Not gray, not brown, something between the two that suggested years of quiet failure. And I thought to myself, how did I let this happen? I spent 40 years keeping other people's homes spotless, marble countertops, crystal stemware, floors you could eat from if you were so inclined. And here was my own kitchen sponge looking like something you'd find in the back corner of a gas station restroom. That was 8 years ago, right after I retired. And I remember thinking I would finally have time to clean properly, time to deep clean every room, time to organize, time to do it right. What I did instead was learn something I probably should have learned 20 years earlier, when my hands first started aching in the mornings, and I had to soak them in warm water before I could grip anything properly. What I learned was this: the house that stays clean is not the one that gets cleaned hardest. It is the one that gets tended to, a little, every single day. Not a marathon, not a project. Just 9 small habits done consistently that keep the whole thing humming along like a well-oiled machine. My grandmother called it keeping house. I spent 4 decades watching people skip it entirely and then pay for it in hours of brutal scrubbing. I paid for it in my own hands. My name is Ruth. I am 73 years old. Today I am going to walk you through the exact 9 daily habits I use to keep my home clean without wrecking my body or my whole morning. The first habit is making your bed within 10 minutes of getting out of it. People skip this one. They tell themselves they will do it later. Later becomes noon. Noon becomes evening. Evening becomes tomorrow. I know because I watched it happen in every home I ever cleaned, including my own in the years I was too tired to bother. And what happens is the bedroom starts to feel unfinished, untended. That one undone thing casts a shadow over the whole room. I cleaned one woman's home for 9 years. Never once did she make her bed before I arrived. And every time I walked into that bedroom, the whole space felt chaotic, even when everything else was in order. The bed was a king with 4 decorative pillows and a coverlet that had probably cost more than my car. She told me once she never saw the point. I wanted to tell her that the bed is the anchor of the room. Pull it tight and the whole room stands up straighter. Make your bed every morning before you leave the room. Pull the sheets smooth. Straighten the pillows. It takes 4 minutes. 4 minutes and your bedroom feels like a place you chose rather than a place you survived. The second habit is wiping down your bathroom sink immediately after your morning routine. The bathroom sink is where the day deposits itself. Toothpaste, soap, a little water splash, a little powder from whatever you put on your face. None of it is terrible on its own, but leave it and it sets. It films over. It builds up along the faucet in that particular gray-white crust that requires actual effort to remove. Effort that at my age I simply do not have the patience for. I keep a small folded cloth right beside my sink, not in the cabinet, not in the drawer, right beside the sink where I cannot ignore it. I wipe the sink down every morning after I finish my routine. Takes 45 seconds. 45 seconds and the sink looks like I cleaned it properly that very morning, because I did. Fold a small cloth. Put it beside the sink tonight. Wipe down the basin, the faucet, and the edges of the counter every single morning. Rinse the cloth. Hang it to dry. That is all. The third habit is dealing with your kitchen sink before you leave the kitchen after every meal. An empty sink changes the feeling of a kitchen the way an open window changes the feeling of a room. There is something about a clear sink that signals the kitchen is resting between uses, rather than still recovering from the last time. I believe that with my whole chest. I believe it because I have felt the difference. My grandmother never once went to bed with dishes in the sink. Never. Not even the nights when she was exhausted. She said leaving dishes was like leaving a door unlocked. You might get away with it, but you would not sleep soundly. I thought that was an old person saying for years. Then I tried it her way and I understood immediately. After every meal, rinse the dishes and either put them in the dishwasher or wash them. Wipe the sink basin with a damp cloth. It does not have to be perfect. It has to be clear. Clear means done. Done means tomorrow starts fresh. The fourth habit is a 10-minute kitchen wipe down every evening. Not a cleaning, not a deep scrub, a wipe down. Counters, stovetop, handles, the things you touched all day. The surfaces that collected the invisible film of cooking and hands and general living. 10 minutes. That is your budget. You do not get 11. I spent 11 years cleaning a kitchen twice the size of my entire house. Stainless steel appliances, stone counters, a commercial range that took 20 minutes alone to clean properly. When the lady of the house cooked and left everything, and I mean everything, sitting out, it added an hour to my morning. Dried sauce, grease on the backsplash, coffee rings on the white marble that had to be treated carefully or they would not come out. 10 minutes every evening with a damp cloth and a small spray of mild cleaner. Counters first, stovetop second, handles on the refrigerator, the oven, the cabinets if you touch them often. That is the entire routine. 10 minutes of quiet patience saves you 10 hours of throbbing joint pain. I mean that literally. The fifth habit is sweeping or quick vacuuming your main floors every day. Not every room, not the whole house. Your main floor, the kitchen and whatever room you move through the most. This is where the crumbs live, where the tracked-in dirt settles, where the pet hair or dust begins to gather into the small tumbleweeds that eventually require a real cleaning session to address. I used to vacuum everything on Thursdays, a full house vacuum. For years that was my system, both in my own home and in my clients' homes. Then my back started sending me messages I could not ignore, and I switched to smaller daily passes through the main spaces. What I found was that the Thursday vacuum had been harder because I had been letting a week accumulate. Smaller and more often was genuinely easier. My body told me what I should have known years before. A small handheld vacuum or a lightweight cordless one makes this effortless. Sweep or vacuum your kitchen floor and your main living area each morning or evening, whichever suits you better. Takes 4 minutes. Keeps the whole house from feeling gritty. The sixth habit is putting things back where they belong before you sit down to rest. This one sounds almost too simple to name, but it is where most homes unravel. Not in the big cleaning tasks, in the small drifts. The glasses left on the end table, the cardigan dropped on the chair, the magazine opened and left face down on the counter, the scissors used and placed on the wrong surface. Separately, none of it is trouble. Together, it becomes a room that feels perpetually disordered, no matter how recently you cleaned it. I tell my daughters this, and I can hear them agreeing politely, the way children agree with their mothers when they think we are repeating ourselves. But I mean it. Tending is a relationship you maintain. Cleaning is a task you complete. The homes I worked in that felt the cleanest were not necessarily the ones where I did the most work. They were the ones where things were simply returned to their places between visits. Before you sit down after any activity, cooking, crafting, reading, anything, take 60 seconds and return what you took out. Put the scissors back. Return the glass to the kitchen. Hang the cardigan. 1 minute before rest. That is the whole habit. The 7th habit is wiping down your stovetop every single time you cook. Not after it cools for an hour, right after, or as soon as it is safely touchable. Because what is easy to wipe when it is fresh becomes a project when it dries. Grease is forgiving when it is new. It is unforgiving after 12 hours. I cleaned for a woman called Mrs. Sterling for several years. She insisted on commercial degreasers for her stovetop. Powerful things. The smell alone was enough to make my eyes water. And I used them because she insisted. But I will tell you, her stovetop was always in terrible condition when I arrived because she cooked every night and never wiped once between my visits. The harsh chemicals were compensating for neglect. That is the cleaning industry's favorite business model, if you ask me. After cooking, let the stovetop cool to safe. Then wipe it down with a warm, damp cloth and a small drop of dish soap if needed. Do not let it sit overnight. Never let it sit overnight. Fresh is easy. Set is suffering. The 8th habit is doing 1 load of laundry from start to finish on the same day. Not starting a load and leaving it in the washer until tomorrow. 1 load. Wash, dry, fold, put away. Same day. This habit alone will prevent the particular chaos of the laundry chair. The chair in the bedroom that starts receiving folded items that are not quite put away yet, and within 3 days becomes a textile mountain that nobody wants to address. Tell me in the comments, do you have a laundry chair? Because I have had one. I have had one that grew so tall I started using it as a landmark. Turn left at the laundry chair. It is funny until you realize it has been there for 6 days, and now you have to put away 27 items at once instead of 7. Pick 1 load. Wash it. Dry it. Fold it while it is still warm and easy to handle. Put it away before you do anything else. 1 load, start to finish. Do not start a 2nd load if you have not finished the first. That is the only rule. The 9th and final habit is doing a 5-minute evening reset of every room you use that day. Not a cleaning, a reset. Walk through your main rooms at the end of the day before you settle in for the evening, and return each space to its neutral state. Pillows straightened, remotes back in their place, cups returned to the kitchen, books closed and stacked, throw blanket folded, lights off in rooms you are done with. I started this habit the year I retired. The first time I walked through my house at 9 in the evening, doing nothing but returning things and straightening surfaces, I felt something release in my shoulders, something I had been carrying all day without knowing I was carrying it. The house looked ready for tomorrow, and I slept better. Not because the house was perfectly clean, because it was settled. 5 minutes. That is all this costs. Walk through every room you used. Return it to neutral. You are not cleaning. You are closing out the day. There is a real difference, and once you feel it, you will not want to skip it. Do these 9 things every day, not perfectly, just consistently, and watch what happens to the space you live in. What happens is not magic. It is something quieter than magic. The house stops feeling like it needs you. It starts feeling like it is simply resting between uses. Clean becomes your baseline instead of your goal. You will spend less time scrubbing, less time dreading, less time looking at a room and calculating the effort required to make it presentable. I spent 40 years learning this the hard way. I cleaned people's homes for wages, and I cleaned my own home on the time I had left over. And my hands paid for every shortcut I took and every habit I skipped. What I know now at 73 is that a clean home is not the result of hard work. It is the result of small habits that you do not have to think about anymore. The cleaning industry sold us suffering and called it clean. I am here to tell you it does not have to cost that much. Tell me in the comments, which of these 9 habits do you already do? And which one have you been skipping? I want to know. And if you found any of this useful, please subscribe. I am here every week with the practical and the honest. No products to sell you, no trends to follow. Just what actually works, from someone who has spent a long time finding out.